in the area of sex, like in all of the 9 areas of activity, that the white supremacists can think of to cause absolute chaos in the minds of black people, they are going to push it to the hilt. And in the area of sex, since sex is a very powerful motivating force, the second greatest motivating force among the people of the planet, next to white supremacy itself, the white supremacists naturally are going to cause a chaotic mind in all non-white people. That's their goal in the area of sex to the maximum. You know, it's always been chaos. We've never had the type of relationships in the area of sex, like in all other areas, economics, that we should have since the advent of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing close to it, and getting further and further away from it. But the white supremacists intend in 2018 to make sex, everything associated with sex, totally chaotic when it comes to the non-white people of this entire planet. I want to keep repeating that. The white supremacists intend to make everything totally chaotic, everything completely messed up, everything a total disaster when it comes to non-white people, black, brown, red, yellow, of this entire planet as fast as they can possibly do it, because they know that if they can mess up the minds, because it all starts with the mind, if they can mess up the minds, the bodies will follow of the non-white people when it comes to sex, then it will be much easier to control them in all the other areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, because sex, you know, everybody walks around thinking about sex. People who are not involved in sexual activity, or at least thinking about it, because they have to think about it because other people are thinking about it. I mean, I've given illustrations on this, you know, that everybody's familiar with. The little old lady down the street, that's not to, you know, say anything derogatory about her, but, you know, she probably no longer has a husband or a boyfriend and all like that, but she's still interested in sex, all right? Even if it just means pulling back the curtain and seeing who's going with who, you know, who's visiting who in the block, and sitting down at the dinner table talking about it. She's still interested in it. She's talking about what other people are doing sexually, because she's no longer having sex, but she used to, a whole bunch of it maybe, or maybe none of it. But it's all had an effect on her mind.
Yes, sir.
It affects everybody. Sex affects everybody, even when they pretend that it doesn't. What do you see now? All of the people now, when they run out of things in politics to talk about, they go after people talking about their sexual activity, correct?
Yeah, yes, sir.
That's correct. I mean, all the politicians and whatnot. I just heard about somebody associated in the Northwestern Hemisphere yesterday. I think it's somebody associated with law enforcement, the FBI or something.
Yeah, that was Mueller.
Somebody saying something about his sex life.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, we can't say nothing else about him, so, hey, find out something sexual about him. Find out what he does sexually, what he has done sexually,
yes,
what he was thinking about doing sexually.
Yeah, that was...
And try to, you know, and all of the entertainers and whatnot. Yeah. It's all about sex. Mm-hmm. Songs are about sex. Most romantic songs are about what? About sex.
Yes.
You know, male with female. And then, so the white supremacists, though, to get back to the point, they intend to make everything chaotic, totally chaotic, when it comes to the non-white people of this entire planet, when it comes to the area of sex, the 8th area of activity. I mean, see it. You see it all around you. You hear it. Yeah, I mean, it's being ramped up 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
They are carrying it over the top. I mean, they're trying to think of everything they can possibly do.
It is World AIDS Day, and a new CDC report is highlighting the racial disparities in HIV in the United States. The report finds that in the past decade, new HIV infections have dropped among white, gay, and bisexual men, but remained flat among Black and Hispanic, Latin, gay, and bisexual men. And according to UNICEF, in 2020, a child was infected with HIV every 2 minutes around the world, and currently 2 in 5 children living with HIV worldwide don't even know their status. Let's talk more about this and bring in Associate Director of HIV and AIDS at UNICEF, Dr. Cheowe Luo, and also founder and CEO of the National Black Leadership Commission on Health, C. Virginia Fields. Thank you both for being with me here today. Virginia, let's start with you. The CDC report, as we mentioned, found that the use of PrEP, which is the pre-exposure prophylaxis that reduces the risk of HIV by 99% when taken daily, was used significantly less among people of color. How much of an impact does this have, and how accessible is this medication?
Well, first of all, it's very disheartening to hear and read those statistics, and we know that the pandemic has even created more challenges in terms of use of PrEP as well as getting tested. So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis, as you said, which is preventive, we have been able to encourage more African Americans, Black males especially, to take PrEP based on relationships, based on our work in the communities. We are trusted. We've been able to answer questions, and we've seen some progress. But all of that has basically been slowed down. HIV testing, use of PrEP, getting persons into treatment, as well as staying in treatment in the midst of this pandemic. So it is very alarming, and it speaks to the work that we still have to do.
And you bring up a good point, Virginia. Trust is such a huge part of what's going on. Dr. Luo, you know, this is heartbreaking that we know that one child dies every 5 minutes worldwide. That was the number in 2020, and that's from HIV, and that's according to UNICEF, of course. How has the prolonged pandemic, you know, COVID-19, actually deepened the inequalities driving the HIV epidemic, and how has that affected the number of children that we're seeing that are losing their lives or being infected?
No, thank you. And this is an important question for us to reflect on. We've been working with countries as way back as 2000 to make sure that we put up the systems and the services that women living with HIV need for them to access antiretroviral treatment, to make sure that we keep them alive and well, but we also prevent them from passing on infection to their children. With the COVID pandemic, the impact that COVID has had on service delivery in a lot of countries in the developing world has also meant that women are not accessing those services. And what we saw earlier on in the pandemic, as we got the lockdowns, as we got staff deployed to respond to this emergency, as we communicated to people about the danger of this COVID-19, meant that people were not coming to the clinics the way they would normally do. And so what we saw is major declines in the testing rates of women to find out whether they were HIV infected. We also saw major declines in new initiations of treatment. But having said that, I'll actually say the focus that we've had as an HIV community on people-centered approaches also meant that we have established the necessary networks, especially at the community level, and the communities were able to very quickly mobilize themselves to think about solutions for example, coming together. Instead of all of them going back to clinic for their medication, one person could go and bring it back to the community. We're able to link these communities with the people that were at the forefront of the COVID response to make sure that they were doing this work safely. So we've learned a lot during the COVID pandemic. that the way we deliver services can be adapted to fit people according to their need.
Neely Fuller is constantly talking about how white supremacy affects all 9 areas of human activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Y'all ready to have this conversation? Or we still gonna act like the stuff we doing sexually don't affect us? Because we finna have this conversation tonight, so you better strap it up. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Breakdown Friday. Let's get into it. Neely Fuller, one of the main things he was talking about in that clip is one of the goals of white supremacy is to cause confusion, especially in the 8th area of human activity, which is sex. Cause confusion, cause chaos. Put those 2 clips together. Heard him talking about the goal is to cause confusion, causing chaos. Then I followed that up with a clip about showing how HIV/AIDS still to this day is affecting the Black community here in America, worldwide, because it's a global system. But we're going to concentrate on what's going on here in America. And so before we get deep into the HIV, we need to reiterate and we talk about how we have sex. I believe, and this is from my 13 years of doing HIV/AIDS prevention and training and care, I believe we need to change the way we have sex. The way we are engaging in sexual activity clearly isn't productive. And it's time for us to stop hiding and stop running from these conversations, because you might not care for the population that's affected the most, not understanding that, hey, you keep acting like that and it's going to affect the person that you in the bed with. So,
Joe,
go ahead.
Explain what you mean by we need to change the way we have sex.
Well,
can you go into a little bit more detail?
The way we engage into having sex, the act of sexual activity, the way we think about sex, the way we go about basically engaging in the act of sex isn't the safest way or the most productive way of having sex, especially if we're talking about in the realm of protecting ourselves from the transmission of HIV and other STDs or STIs, or even in the unplanned pregnancies. People are not paying attention, first of all, to all of the safe sex materials, and they're not using all of the safe sex materials or safe sex tools that are out there. But also, like, for example, if I'm giving an HIV test to somebody, and especially if it's somebody who thinks that the person they may have had sex with, that person may have HIV. So the question I'm asking them is, first of all, okay, did you engage in oral sex? Did you engage in vaginal sex? Did you engage in anal sex? If you engaged in oral sex, did you use a condom? Did you use protection? Any type of protection engaged in oral sex, whether it's somebody performing on the male or female. Okay. If you did engage in oral sex, and was it the best experience? Did she rough you up? Did she scrape you up? That matters. The breaking of the skin, your skin being intact, that matters. Because if let's say a woman is HIV positive and she performs oral sex on the man and she kind of scrape him up, and then that man has unprotected vaginal sex with her and she has HIV and he's scraped up, that's created what's called ports of entry, and that increases his chances of contracting HIV. And so that's an example of what I mean by we need to change the way we have sex. We need to be more conscious of the way we're having sex, because for one, we're not protecting ourselves all the way that we're supposed to, and we don't even really think about the range of safe sex and how far that goes. Does that answer the question?
So we need to be having safe sex with proper barriers, proper amounts of lubrication, and proper testing beforehand.
Proper testing, yes. Need to be having conversations about the types of sexual activities that people engage into, whether they might be into something that you're not into. Whether you need to know this person's history of having STDs. You need to know what's this person's attitude about wearing protection, using protection. Because all of that matters in going to keeping yourself safe, especially if we're trying to reduce the numbers.
And I bring up the lubrication point because it's a sore point for everybody. But so we are, you are saying again with the breaking of the skin.
Right.
Obviously, if things are a little dry or whatever the case might be,
It
that
increases the
abrasiveness,
chances.
could create a port of entry, as you would say. Okay, I just wanted to, because when you say that we need to change the way we have sex, that's broad, and I know,
Hmm.
like, I'm technical Ted. What that mean?
But that's why you're supposed to do what you do. I trust me, I got the answers on this. But all right, so I want to, but like I said, before we get deep into HIV, throw it to you, PC, because you a man and you work with young boys and you work with young kids. So how?
Not with having sex, no.
Yeah, no. You as an educator, you're a teacher. Okay, you
Thank you.
teach children about stuff in school, not nothing sexual. Okay, to be clear. So how how do you, in your opinion, how do you think just black people, even in our age range, even the younger age range, how do you think just sex period? How do you think black people perceive sex before we even get to the safe sex?
Very, very reckless. Um, in when we start talking about just the concept of sex, the thought process of sex, from a very primitive perspective. And I say that not to insult anybody, but I say it because when you think about an evolution, the evolution of a species, the more evolved the species is, the more sophisticated the species is, the less they are enamored with the physical, um, the seeking to the thrill of that sort of physical release. They find it in other ways, and I don't want to say another word, but it just escaped me right now. But in terms of how we move about it, it's not sophisticated at all. It's kind of like we treat sex with, we're very irresponsible in regards to having it. We treat it as if it's the number one priority.
Yeah.
And when you try to teach it to young people, they don't understand the responsibility that comes with it. And the older you get, the more, not just the older, but the more mature you get, the more worldly you get in terms of your not just accomplishments, but your thought processes, your evolution. The more you sort of respect the processes of everything you do. And when you talk about sex, and I brought this up on my Facebook page a few weeks ago and drew a few people crazy. Sex is a ritual that we undertake. When you embrace and you transfer fluids with people, and there is almost, for some people, there's a spiritual connection that takes place. Even the people who do it recklessly and do it haphazardly, you know. So even before you get to the part where the harm that comes from being irresponsible with sex, the potential consequences that come from being irresponsible, just the physical consequences from STIs to possibly to impregnating somebody, to traumatizing somebody. Because if you have rough enough sex, you can traumatize somebody. Um, to the point you're talking about, breaking, the all the other things. Before you get to that, some of us get to this place where this is a spiritual thing, and that's the evolution of a people. Like when scientists talk about the evolution, like million years from now, what will people evolve into? Many of them think we'll just evolve into a form of energy, right? Which is our natural essence and things of that nature. So it's a very deep topic with me, because when you try to explain it to people, you try to explain it to people in ways they'll understand. But I think that this is not an accident. We're in a highly sexualized environment, and the ways that they actually go after people, is the advertising, the programming. I mean, the Nickelodeon channel, the Disney Channel, all the children, the Cartoon Network, all these channels that are geared towards children promote sex, commercials, the color red. They understand that when you show them when you show them flash the color red, it takes the brain into that suggestive frequency, into the point where the power of suggestion sexually, you can manipulate people into wanting and desiring something, because those people will equate those particular things with the feeling, the eroticism that they experience from having sex. So this is a very conniving thing that's taking place, and it's putting us, unfortunately, it's happening to us at a time, like I said, where the recklessness of sex is there, where people are wanting to express themselves sexually, as though it's some sort of liberation. And you're seeing the results. I mean, you get to see the results literally on a daily basis.
We're gonna go over it. We're gonna go over it. So you mean tell me, so you brave enough to talk about the spiritual and the psychological, emotional effects of having sex under the system of white supremacy? That's what you brave enough to talk about that?
We don't have time not to. See, people are used to being pandered to. People are used to us talking around things. And how come we can talk about the spiritual nature of God, or the spiritual nature of the ancestors, the spiritual nature of the universe, and not include sex in it, when sex is at the time when people are actually at the probably the most heightened sense of spirituality? Is when people are having sex, literally, it's almost as though your soul leaves your body. What do people talk about oral sex and say, "I'm gonna snatch your soul"? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm a demon. They call it demon time when she going ham. Yeah.
Yeah, and so to not talk about those things, or to pretend like that's not the conversation, that speaks more so to our de-evolution. That speaks much more to our social and psychological regression, because now sex is the top priority, not nation building, not building a family, not building your career, not trying to go out and make yourself a better person than you were yesterday. None of those things matter, because people are putting themselves in position for sex. People buy cars. Why? Because they want to allure the other sex for sex. People want these houses and all this other for sex. People want to dress nice. Men peacock for sex. All these different things. And I haven't even brought into the conversation what the women do. You know what I'm saying? How they operate and utilize sex as a weapon. I mean, shit, sex as a weapon is actually a common term. Not just sex as a weapon, but sex, what do they say? What was the old saying? Use what you got to get what you want.
That's what they said in Players Club.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that was a song way before Players Club. The bottom line is, because we are not socially maturing as the people, this thing we consistently come back to, this arrested development we consistently come back to, is like we're teenagers playing around, with each other, following each other, without understanding the repercussions of where this goes. And I'll land my plane there.
Pat, same question. You have a chance to interact on an educational level within an educational institution about education with children and adults. So how do you think the Black community perceives sex?
I agree with what PC said. I think we view it irresponsibly. I'm big on the sexual component. Whenever I need to, like, I study the stats and stuff, but like, that's what you do. So, I do feel like, look, I got somebody that I can reach out to that's in that lane. So, I hit you up and ask you for questions about that. But like, when I hit you up and asked you, because the kids told me that if a girl had HIV, her vagina turned blue.
Yeah.
These are actual questions
blue waffle.
These are actual, like, conversations that I have with kids ages 14 to 18. You would think the 18-year-old would know better than to believe something like a blue waffle, but apparently they do not. Go ahead. I see
No,
because I know where
no.
I'm at. So go ahead.
Nah, you remember what we was talking about the other day. Go and ask adults what HIV. Just ask them, what does HIV stand for. Just go ask adults that.
Well, what was funny is right after I sent you that comment about do we really need to raise awareness, I had a flashback of all the conversations I've had with kids over the years about STIs. And I
Yeah,
was like, nah, you know what? Yeah, we do.
yeah.
But I think the irresponsibility of it, I agree with PC. I'm big on the spiritual component of it. I was raised that way, and I'm raising my kids to be that way. And the kids that I work with, I talk to them that way. Look, sex is the one time that we can, if you believe in a God, any God, sex is the one time when humans tap into that God force. It's the one time where humans can create life. It takes
Hmm.
two of us joining our energies together. Listen to me, y'all. It takes two of us, a man and a woman,
Wow.
joining their energy together. The immaculate
Mm.
conception, you ain't that, and it wasn't immaculate. Somebody still came down to her and gave her the business. It was just an angel. But in any case, it takes two of us to combine our energies together to create life. And when you take on that process, that burden, and yes, it is a burden. I know we don't like to talk about having kids. Is it no, there's a responsibility and a weight that comes with that. There's a burden that comes with that. When you take on that burden, you have to be responsible because you are responsible for all of the outcomes of it. You're responsible and accountable for all of them. So it's a serious situation. It bleeds into the creation of the family, the creation of the community, the creation of the culture. The genesis of all of that in a lot of ways is sex. So this is a very spiritual, very godlike, higher being like activity that we're engaged in, and we engage in it with no thought of the responsibilities or the accountabilities that are going to come with it. So I have a big problem with that because again, we're not even just talking about STIs or STDs. We're talking about the next generation being created because you was hot in your pants and couldn't keep it there. And now, not only are you, not only is your partner, but you got a kid that's been since birth, and you got to explain to them why they're here, why you didn't bother to tell them nothing about nothing from nothing. You know, like you got all of these now questions and stuff. Because my biggest beef, and I'm gonna land my plane here, is that parents are not talking to their children about sex, and that's evident in the conversations that I have with your children about sex.
Stop trying to steal my talking point.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey,
My
nah,
bad.
hey, nah, my editing skills gonna get live because of you. I'm just saying. I don't know. You talking about the kids? Nah, we can't say that.
We can't
Nah,
say
it's not well. The context of it,
I
because
thought I was
especially
being good. Damn, Joe.
Blame on.
yeah, but I'm happy. Okay, well, it's all good. But so I like we all agree with the recklessness, but I think a lot of the recklessness comes from, of course, the root, white supremacy, racism. That's the root, but a lot of recklessness comes from our our conservativeness, our natural conservativeness, and then our fake bravado that we have with sex, because we've totally brought into like a lot of the ideas of sex and sexuality as far as we just supposed to just have sex with anybody. I mean, look at how sex is taught to men. Look at how sex was taught to us when we were growing up and how it was taught to women. And then look at how it is now. I keep telling people, you can't get the city girls if you don't have Freaknik, right? But things came before that. But the way like in the world of HIV, a lot of people say, and a lot of people believe that the black community is 20 years behind, especially the white community, 20 years behind every other community. You saw in the clip that I played, the second half of the clip when the ladies were talking, They were talking about the use of, well, they're talking about HIV numbers being stagnant, but also talking about Black people not utilizing the safe sex measures, and one of them being the PEP and the PrEP. And I get into that a little later with the medical distrust with that. But outside of the PEP and PrEP, just condoms. Well, let me say this. One of my issues with especially the PrEP, the pre-exposure prophylaxis. And just a quick explanation. Think about the pre-exposure prophylaxis as if somebody would take that on a daily basis, as if a woman would take birth control. So if a person has high risk sexual activities, or that person is in a relationship with somebody who's HIV positive, what they call the HIV discordant couples, if that person is in that high risk situation, that person should be taking PrEP and using condoms, depending on the specific situation. If their partner is undetectable, if it's been cleared by their doctors or whatever, that should be a whole medical process. But, and I've seen this, and I've seen some of the behavior, and I've come across information that because PrEP is believed to be a drug that will stop people from contracting HIV, they're taking it, but still not using protection. And I remember scrolling through Facebook a couple years ago, and it wasn't an American group, but the idea of sex and sexuality overall. It was a group of men, and I think of men and women, but mostly men in the conversation. And basically the question was, how many I might bleep that up, but how many can a person take before the PrEP doesn't work anymore? So that goes back to my original trepidation with the PrEP is we're not focused on changing people's behavioral patterns when it comes to sex. The way we look at our STD numbers, look at our HIV numbers, and look at our single parent numbers. The way we're having sex, going back to what I said earlier, is not productive. Clearly, it's not productive. It's more on it's more destructive than productive. And then, like you said, people are not even considering the spiritual aspect. That's not even some people may say it, but they're not considering the spiritual aspect that comes with sex. They're not considering like the educational aspect. Look, parents, I'm gonna say this, Black parents, I don't care what your child's sexuality is, you need to teach your child how to protect themselves. You need to teach your child, I don't care what their sexual preference is, you need to teach your child how to protect themselves. Because like I said earlier, you may not agree with their sexual preference, you may not want to give information to this specific group, but it's affecting every other group, because whether you know it or not, these different groups of people are mingling and having sex. And we're going to show you some statistics in a minute that, hey, heterosexual Black women are affected greatly by this.
But, Joe, I'm going to take it back to one of the things you said in terms of like the deviants. But, I mean, it spoke to the deviants, but you said some earlier demon time.
Yeah.
And none of this stuff happened by accident.
Right.
This whole, especially the part with the ladies, we're going to get into that part too. But none of this stuff happened by accident. If you realize that my generation, and I'm not even sure what we generation X, I don't even know what the hell, I don't really go by those things, but I just know my generation was the first generation of latchkey kids. Because specifically in our community, it was really the first generation where the whole notion of single mothers took over. And even if you wasn't a single mother, your mother and whoever the father figure was, whether he was a father or your stepfather, they all still had jobs. So you still were a latchkey kid. You got home around between 3 and 5, 3 and 6, you were in the home. The teenagers were in the home alone, right?
Yep.
So you're talking about the late 80s, early 90s, right? Mid 80s, early 90s. Around that time, things changed. Now, you went from having Phil Donahue, Merv Griffin, which is really telling my age, Sally Jesse Raphael, and Oprah Winfrey being the primetime shows that were on television. I'm not even talking about the cartoons. I'm talking about, because we didn't have cable back then. So you had generally 4 or 5 channels that you had access to. And the major media networks were all on the VHFs. So that was anything from channel 2 to channel 13, right? So you had 3 channels in every city: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And so those are the channels you basically had to deal with. Those are the shows that came on. Those shows still talked about community values, cultural values, things of that nature. Even if they were speaking to topics that were disrespectful, when you had a Shahrazad Ali or a Francis Cress Welsing, or some of the other prolific, Sister Soldier, and some of the other prolific people that would come on those talk shows, right? But that switched, that changed. And then you got into the Ricky Lakes, right? You got into, I forget the other one, Jenny Jones. Now the conversations become a lot more salacious, right? The conversations become a lot more salacious. And then you got, in addition to that, you got the situation where now you enter the music genre, and the music changed, and all these things were targeted toward that time slot where, for the most part, if the single mother wasn't home or the parents weren't home, you had children that had access to that stuff. It was into the lexicon now. None of this stuff is happenstance. And when the stats came out in terms, because you had a high rate of teenage pregnancies, when those stats started coming out and they started asking the teenagers, like they started trying to figure out what time were young people having sex, it was during that same window between 3 and 5 o'clock. That's the window that all the sex was taking place, all the curiosity sex, as you will, from the teenagers. All that stuff was taking place around that time. So, all these things, the way they're happening and the way they're moving and the way that they're happening today, a lot of these processes started back then. And when you look at the evolution of this, the de-evolution of this, then you start to think about what Elder Neely Fuller was saying. The chaos that came with that, the confusion that came with that. Like on the back of your dollar bill, it talks about how the chaos will form order. You know what I'm saying? And so all of these things are put in place to create mass confusion. And we're not even going to talk about, like we said, all the biological and chemical warfare that's still plaguing the Black community, but that was heavy back then, that nobody was able to pinpoint where it was headed or where it was going. We just see the long-term consequences now. And now when you try to talk to people, we often refer to the calcified parts of the brain so that they don't understand what's going on. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and realized you'd have more success talking to the wall that's behind them than the individual that's in front of the wall? That's the dynamic we're dealing with right now.
Hey, sex has become social currency for us in a way. If you have a lot of sex, then you're cool, you're popular, you're supposed to be respected. I said it before, we often respect the things that don't help us as a community. And so looking at the outcomes of how reckless we are with our sexual activity, we refuse to learn it. Parents refuse to teach their children about it. Parents refuse to talk to their children about it. Parents refuse to learn the information. If I hear another parent tell me that they're not ready, your damn child's 16. Your child is 16. Don't nobody care if you ready or not. Your child's 16. You already late. You 5-6 years late. Your child's 16. I think some of the a lot of these parents live in delusion. They do.
Wait a minute, Joe.
They don't believe they don't believe that their child is doing it.
Wait a minute. Because these are the same parents that were promiscuous themselves at that time.
Right.
These are the ones that introduced that promiscuous, that whole idea of, body counts not mattering, being sexually liberated, and at this age, Now, these
Look,
parents are the ones that's getting caught twerking. These parents are the ones on video getting caught at sipping paint programs, things of that nature. These parents are the same ones out here that are out that Papa was the Rolling Stone. You got one brother that just got locked up, I think out in Georgia, got like 40 children, damn near 40 children. You know what I'm saying?
look, man.
Bruh, I'm
You
sorry.
you you don't get a hot girl summer if you didn't have Freaknik. And you don't get Freaknik if you didn't have the over sexualized activities of black people that they just kept hidden before that. It was just hidden. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk about the promiscuity that was going on. Nobody wanted to talk about the cheating and running around, all the things there. Nobody wanted to talk about not using protection. You going around here, you know, at some point, a lot of these people, they know how babies are made, and they choose to engage in unprotected sexual acts, and then be surprised when a child is made. So you didn't know you ejaculated inside this woman? Like when I hear a dude like, I ain't trying to get her pregnant. Well, so explain to me how you didn't try to get her pregnant. Did you use a condom? No. So you had unprotected sex? Yes. Well, did you ejaculate inside of her? Yes. So what the hell you expected to happen?
But I think it goes back to, like, again, we talking about, like, my big thing is taking responsibility and being accountable, right? And that starts with understanding what you're ready for. If you are not ready to talk to a child about sex, you should not be engaged in sex, period. And because I also don't like the excuse of, well, I'm not ready now, but by the time my child is old enough to have that conversation, then no, you won't. You still won't be ready. And
Nobody cares.
Here's the other thing with that. Because PC made a good point about the kids being left alone, and I hear a lot of people nowadays saying, well, that's why I keep my kids busy. Look, as somebody that spends a lot of time working with and in programs that kids are just in because their parents want to keep them busy, if you have not educated your child to the things that we're talking about right now about sex and things of that nature, children, especially teenagers, are going to find some place to have sex. They're going. You can't keep them that busy, and we forget what it was like to be a teenager. When you were a teenager and you were first getting locked in on sex, you was thinking about it all the time. Even when you was focused on other things, sex was still a very close second to whatever else. Your grandma could be dying in a hospital, and sex is still a close second to being worried about your grandma. You cannot busy these kids out of not wanting to have sex. What you can do is, I agree, keep them busy, but educate them and raise responsible children that at least understand the responsibilities that come with that activity and that are in a better position to try to negate those desires. That's really all you can do.
Look, we have to give ourselves the tools to protect ourselves, to be better.
But we also have to allow for that process to take place. And a lot of times it doesn't take place due to the fact that people want to pretend that they're prudes when it comes to their children. People want to pretend like this stuff doesn't happen, or if I close my eyes, it'll all go away. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, there used to be a group of brothers, right? They would drive around the neighborhood with a casket on the top of their car. And it would be one of those scared straight joints where they were basically saying, young brother, if you're out here in the streets, this could be you. You know what I'm saying? And that was way before things got as bad as it did during the crack cocaine. That was right around the time crack just started hitting the neighborhood. There used to be also a group of brothers that would drive around from neighborhood to neighborhood, and they would pull up in a van, or they would pull up in a station wagon or a hearse, but they would have a projector against the wall outside, right? and they would literally show pictures of what happened to you if you had unprotected sex. And they would go down the list of all the, we called them STDs back then, or VD back then. They would go down the list of all these different things, right? Now we talk about nowadays, if you a teacher and you show this stuff to a student in your class or to a classroom, now the first people offended in this hyper woke culture are the damn parents.
Yep.
You know, how dare you expose our children to this? How dare you expose our children to that?
You ain't.
But they do so from the perspective of ignorance is bliss. I'm going to pretend or plausible deniability. I'm gonna let you watch all these wild ass movies. I'm gonna let you be a fan of some of these promiscuous rappers and performers and things of that nature. I'm gonna let you have access to all those things and all the stuff they're talking about, but yet and still, so you're proud. You're doing TikTok, see your 8-year-old dancing to this. Your 8-year-old or your 3-year-old see you twerking or see some crazy stuff going on in the mirror while you're trying to post for the gram and all this other stuff. And yeah, it might sound like I'm coming off with the women because I don't really see men doing this shit. I do see men allowing the little boys to have women.
Oh, I get to the men. I get to the men. I got them.
Okay.
I get to the men.
But the bottom line is 95% of what I see happens with the sisters exposing their children to sex, twerking, and all this other stuff. That's a ritual in itself, a mating ritual in itself, since we want to take it back to Africa. So when they're doing it to Africa, they're doing it to get a man. So it's not just an innocent dance. And we got all this stuff going on. And we keep pretending like the shit ain't happening. And we keep pretending like throwing rocks and hiding our hands.
Look, so real quick. I just want to remind people, Cardi B says she wouldn't let her children listen to her music.
Yep.
Oh, bro.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, look. We can keep pretending like you're talking about the parents. We can keep pretending like your child won't have sex. Your child, male or female, gonna be the one in the bathroom or the back of the bus or behind the building. Look, I've worked in HIV prevention for 13 years and all throughout the Big Bend area. And I have statistics of 2021 of the HIV rates here in my Big Bend area, but I also have national statistics we finna get into. But I've been to elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges, retirement homes, juvenile detention facilities, after school programs, before school programs, summer programs, you name it. I've taught the senior. I was just passing out condoms to seniors yesterday. And we don't want to talk about it. Everybody having it, but we don't want to talk about it. In the Black community, sex is a badge of honor. Look, here in Tallahassee, we have a joke for the college students. If you're a college student and you didn't get chlamydia because you didn't try hard enough. And we say that because look, we have the number one chlamydia and gonorrhea rates in the state of Florida. Little Tallahassee. We have syphilis can be between 2 and 7. We have we're not at the highest, but we're not at the bottom when some of the highest rates of HIV in the state of Florida. But what I do know,
also got FSU and FAMU too.
Well, that's what I was finna get to. Because we have these colleges and these kids are coming to college, male and female, and they have not been taught about sex. Look, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, when I would be testing girls, and I'm just going off what they say. I'm not adding or subtracting numbers, but the numbers were significantly lower for women than it is now, as far as the number of sexual partners within a 12-month period. For the men, the dudes have always been reckless. The older men have always failed the younger men and not teaching them sexual discipline and sexual responsibility. That's been happening in the Black community for the longest. So now when we come talking about sexual discipline to a dude disciplining his stuff, it's a foreign concept. I never thought about that. I know because the older dudes around us failed us. We've been out here slinging. Hey, guess what? Whether you agree with the sexuality or not, black men have the highest rates of HIV in the United States.
Yeah.
The way we doing it got to change.
Well, and even to what I said earlier, I like. So I want to make this clear, right? I'm not saying educating your kid or teaching your kid is going to prevent them from whatever, because kids are still going to be kids. But I am a firm believer in that if you lay a solid foundation and you start early enough, like my mom was a very sexually liberated woman, and so we were having conversations about sex early on in my life. I'm talking about elementary school. We're having conversations about sex, which I think personally is appropriate.
Me too.
Um, so so even though I did have sex at an early age, like I got my high school girlfriend pregnant, but because I understood the concept of responsibility and the concept of accountability, I didn't get mad at nobody, right? Like I didn't blame nobody. I didn't lash out. I took that on the chin. All right, I got her pregnant because I had unprotected sex and didn't pull out, regardless of the reason. So now I have to restructure my plans to account for a baby. Joined the military, made a couple other decisions. So I'm saying, even if we do what we need to do as far as educating the kids, even if they do slip up, we're still in a better position. You know how many of my peers also got their high school girlfriends pregnant and did
A
not
lot.
take any steps to secure that child or to alter their lives or the thought of them changing the plans for their life to account for what they did, they
Didn't think
found
about it.
those thoughts offensive if they thought about them at all.
I'm
And
gonna
that's
do
what
me.
I'm saying.
I'm gonna do
Like,
me.
right. Even if a child does slip up after they're given all the information, right? If you've laid the proper foundation, they still can make the proper decisions after the fact. And that's the other part that's missing, because it's not going to be 100%, but it can't be 40% success rate in terms of 18, 19, 20-year-olds not getting pregnant. Only 40% of them are not getting pregnant. And then in addition to that, out of that 40%, 80% of them are like, fuck these kids. That's not going to work.
Look, look. Talking about foundations, I give you two examples. So in our household or in my family, so a lot of babies get made. A lot of babies get made. A lot of babies get made in my family. But in our immediate household, the what me and my brother, my oldest brother, what we were taught is you don't make babies outside of marriage. So we never thought about making babies outside of a marriage. That's why I'm 39, he's like 41, and we don't have children. We've never been married. Um, I have one of the people that I work with. He's a black gay male. When he said he had a group of 15 other black gay males that he came to college with. He was the only one or one of the few who was actually taught how to protect themselves. And to this day, he's the only one who's not HIV positive.
Damn.
Man, look, I've never told somebody who wasn't me personally. I've never told somebody who wasn't black that they were not HIV positive. And most of the people that I tell who are HIV positive, they are black men. We got to get our stuff. The way we discipline, the way we teach men, we take the sexual mentality of a heterosexual black man. Think about the average horny black man in a club with a whole bunch of good looking girls, right? Think about what that dude is doing, how that dude is thinking, because we've all been there in the environment, a whole bunch of nice looking women, and you horny. Think about that. All right. Now take that same mindset, because don't let the sexual orientation think that mindset gonna change, because the socialization is still the same. So take that same mindset and put that mindset in a room with a whole bunch of other men that think the same way. What you think you gonna get? What's the word Neely Fuller use? Chaos. It's
Yeah.
designed to cause chaos.
And to that, real quick, I want to add the conversations that I was having with my mother and my father were not, you better not bring no babies in this house, boy. Those were not the conversations, all right? Because I hear a lot of fathers saying that to their daughters and their sons and mothers too. You better not bring no babies in this house, boy. Now I done warned you. That is not a conversation.
That's stupid. Yeah. So let me share my screen. Let me show y'all some of these stats. So this is HIV and Black African American people in the U.S. and I'm gonna expand this. And this is more than 40% of the new HIV infections in the United States occur among Black people. New HIV infection in the U.S. by race and ethnicity in 2019. And they're still gathering up statistics too nationally. So far, I haven't found a lot of national stats that go past 2019 or 2020. So, but an estimated 34,800 people in 2019 were diagnosed with HIV infection. We lead the pack. Now the Hispanic community is coming for us. Their conservativeness is not helping them as well. But you see, well, we still number one. We still have the highest rates. We still have the highest rates of HIV in the nation. All right. So 40% of all people with HIV in the US are Black. Look at 479,300 people. We look at this.
And now let's for those of you that said it, well, that's not a big number. You gotta look at a percentage of Black people of 12 to 14% of the population, the total population. And we make up 40% of all of the people with HIV. That is a huge disparity.
Huge disparity.
Like all the other groups put together don't equal what's going on in the Black. And that's because, like I said, we go back to the whole thing. We are, as a people, preoccupied with playing around. And sex is how grown people play around.
Chaos.
And because we have such a preoccupation with it, you really can't even have this conversation with a group of brothers because, you know, and I'll talk about this from the man's perspective. As Black men, the only time that Black men are allowed to actually exude any form of masculinity whatsoever is whether it's in sports, some form of entertainment, not all, and then sex, sexual prowess. And this shit goes back to the plantation. You know, when we start talking about the what people are doing, most people go to the gym not to get in shape because they want longevity. When I hear brothers talk about going to the gym, one of the first things I hear them talking about is how their penis still works. And that's the purpose of one of the purpose. You know, I get hard, you know. And I'm like, that's the only reason you go to the gym? That's the only reason you're a vegan? That's the only reason you're plant-based? But that's one of the, it's like the selling point.
You got to grow up. That's dumb. Grow up.
Bruh.
That's body shaming at work.
Man, I hear this a lot.
Hey, man, that's crazy.
And so if that's your main motivation, no wonder we aren't nation building.
Nah, we hunching too much.
You know, because we're searching for that low-hanging fruit, that low vibrational energy, or that low vibrational goal of, you know, getting with women. And even if you're not either, whether they're straight, gay, or whatever, queer, whatever, the sex is still a strong motivator towards all those different things. Now you look at that chart and you flip it into who actually has power in this country. And then you flip it in terms of like the chart that you just had up. And you flip it. The people that have the lowest number in regards to HIV positive results is the white community.
Got the most power.
Still seen has power in this country. The people who are coming up in power.
No. Wait, but remember the number of Asians is still not enough.
Right. So And you look at
Asians are the fastest growing demographic in America, though.
they're
Shout out
fastest
to them.
growing demographic, but and economically too.
Yeah.
But they're preoccupied with other things. And they ain't to say there ain't no Asian freaks out here, they are. But it's saying it's not prioritized like it is for us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sex is also a coping method for us that we use to deal with the everyday stresses of life, or i.e. white supremacy, racism. Unprotected sex gives people the same release as coming home or smoking a joint or doing a line or drinking or something. It's the same chemical release. It's a coping. Some people use it as a coping method. A lot more people may use it as a coping method than they may even realize. Right?
Yeah, I understand that part.
Yeah.
But in regards to like,
and now that's not absolving nobody. Nah,
right.
That ain't what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
the whole what I'm really trying to say is, if we changed our focus to building with brothers, because a lot of the times too, the peacocking is causing a lot of friction amongst Black men. And the peacocking is for the affections of women. And if we stop with the peacocking, if we stop with this whole notion of we got to do this because I want to outshine this brother, that brother, for access to the women sexually, then maybe we start actually moving in a direction where we be more involved, more focused, and then we can actually have conversations around generational wealth, protection of culture, and things of that nature. And that's all I'm really speaking to. But to look at this particular, it's really, not only is it scary, it's embarrassing.
Well, but I think also we got to look at how we are cultured too, because Hispanic numbers are rising, but I'm attributing that to religion and conservativeness. But same thing, religion, conservativeness, and white supremacy with all of us though. Because you see our numbers are still the highest. The Hispanic community has passed us in population, but our numbers are still the highest. And now look at this heterosexual women. Look at this. This is becoming an issue in this area. And hey, I work in the world of sex. I know how people are having sex. I know how these new generation young girls are having sex. A lot of these new young girls are a lot more into anal sex than older generations were. That's something that contributes to the rise in their numbers. And a lot of these women are having sex with men who have sex with other men, and they don't know it. And then a lot of these women are having heterosexual sex with a heterosexual man, and the heterosexual man not checking, going back to the dudes again. They not even thinking about, man, look, when I ask men, do they have conversations with women about STDs and sexual history? Nah, I ain't never think about that. Hell, you mean you ain't never think about that? But now heterosexual Black men having sex with heterosexual Black women, those numbers are going to rise. Look at it. Look at the numbers, 1,400. They're rising.
I think but that goes back to something that used to be a thing back in the day, which, they used to tell us growing up, when you have sex with somebody, you having sex with everybody they had sex with.
Yep.
And saying that nowadays becomes some form of history shaming. Like, now you're attacking somebody for having a sexual history. Well, no, I'm not. I'm protecting myself from your sexual history.
But that mindset right there, that mindset, oh, I'm gonna go directly to shame, or you trying to make me feel bad because you want to protect yourself. What you trying to? I like some people when they literally say, "Well, why we got to use condoms? You think I'm dirty?" No. Well, yeah. And I don't want to get you pregnant. And I don't want to get you pregnant.
Now, you know what? Look, man, we need to because PC and I've been talking about this a lot. We need to do what we can to bring shame back. And dudes got to stop being scared to talk their way out of vagina. So if you trying to protect you and her, because she don't know your status just as much as you don't know hers. If she asks you, so you trying to say I'm dirty? Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And if a dude asks you that, as a female, you need to say the same thing. Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. You look dirty.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
real dirty now, especially you telling me you don't want to have unprotected, or you want to have unprotected sex, and you don't know
Yeah.
my status and I don't know yours. Not only do you look dirty, you look dumb.
Hey, look, real quick. Like, look at this is viral suppression numbers. So these are the percentages of people within every group who are uh they don't produce enough copies of the HIV virus in their body to transmit it to other people. So these are the people who would be untransmittable. So another thing about this is these people can take a regular HIV test, a rapid test, or even a blood draw test, and HIV doesn't show up on those tests, but those people are still HIV positive, and that record is still logged. But the overall average is in the US is 68%. You see black people are at 65%, Hispanic at 71%, white people at 68%. We're not off, we're not totally off on that, but that can be higher for us, right? Um, Looking at the only 9% of black people in the US who were eligible for PrEP in 2020 were prescribed. And so going back to what I was saying earlier, black people don't want they the actions that black people have shown, they don't want to take PrEP. Black people still don't trust the doctors, they still don't trust the medical establishment, but black people are not gravitating towards the PrEP drug. And these companies and these institutions are pushing PrEP hard. You heard the ladies in the clip in the beginning. They were people are pushing PrEP hard. I'm about 40% on PrEP. I'm not totally sold on PrEP. I'm about 40% on it. I understand its usefulness, but I still believe that we need to teach people to change their sexual behaviors. PrEP ain't gonna be the answer. Teach people to change their sexual behaviors. I've I I know this dude right now, and I probably said it before. I say it again. I know this dude right now in this city right now who's HIV positive. No, he's HIV positive. Last time I checked, he wasn't virally suppressed. He's not telling women his status. He's going around and just impregnating women and transmitting HIV. And he's not been arrested because the women love him. They're not going to turn him in.
You know, yeah, this and a lack of discipline
Right.
with all this here. And there's no we choose the wrong shit to not snitch about. You know, like we will. It's funny, right? Because we get exposed all the time. We get exposed all the time. We expose people. We call people out, this, that, and the other, all the time. Typically, good people who might slip up and do something to have error. But dirty cats, dirty mug, and I ain't gonna cuss because I don't want you to, lose the algorithm. Dirty mugs out here doing God knows what, and we ain't networking about what that could be. Like we'll talk about it on the low, but we won't put anybody on. Like I knew a cat, like growing up, I knew somebody that was HIV positive. I found out after the fact that this woman infected like 25 people. One of the people she infected got mad and said, I'm going to do that to other women. So now you have about 100 people who got infected, right? Because one person purposefully infected a group of people, and this is just off of 2 people. We don't know how the other ones spiraled out, or the spider web that attaches all these other ones together. You know what I'm saying? And because with HIV, you can walk around with it and be dormant for so long, you really don't know who has what these days.
Well, it ain't dormant. They just don't know they have it.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. It's like no observable symptoms.
Well, they didn't know. A lot of those people, they had the regular HIV symptoms, but the problem is those regular HIV symptoms can mirror the flu symptoms. And until like let's say if a person has been positive for 8 months, I'm sure that person has had flu-like symptoms, but that person hasn't had HIV long enough in their body to get opportunistic infections. And those, just think of an opportunistic infection as any, like some of the dormant infections that we may have in our body, and our immune system is strong enough to keep them dormant. When the immune system is at a low level, all those opportunistic infections, someone could be Kaposi sarcoma, that could be one, or what they call AIDS-related herpes. But that would mean that the person has progressed from HIV into AIDS. And now we're starting to see the physical signs, but they thought they had the flu. A lot of them, they thought they had the flu, or they thought it was a common cold, and they didn't recognize the signs. But the main thing they didn't do was get tested, because people should be getting tested every 3 months if you're sexually active. So,
unless you're married, in which case, if you're married, you should be getting tested every
once a
2
year.
weeks. Oh, once a year. Oh, okay.
I mean, we tell them once a year, but look, if you married, I would say 6 months to a year. If you think your partner
married,
doing something wrong,
you should be getting tested every time after you have sex. Especially with the way people are in marriages nowadays.
Cheating rates are up. Cheating rates are up on both sides.
You should be getting tested every 2.5 hours.
Hey man, look, especially in our community, black men and black women, we're cheating at high rates. It's crazy.
Yes, we are. I was looking at a report earlier today. Black men and black women are, now that's all self-reporting, and we do know men lie up and women lie down. But one thing that nobody seemed to lie about was the fact that black men and black women cheat more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, chaos. Didn't Neely Fuller talk about the goal of it in the area of sex is to cause chaos? Mm-hmm. It sounds like we've been describing chaos for the last hour and 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I mean, okay, we got the highest cheating rates, and we also have the highest HIV rates. I always also have the highest single parent rates. Also, don't have families.
The highest incarceration rates, the highest drug use rates, the poverty rates, the
lowest educational rates.
Almost all the negative stats you can list, we seem to be somewhere close to the top. Us and Native Americans.
Yep.
And that's not good.
Because we are all acknowledging that racism is the root cause of this. We're all acknowledging, but what we are saying is this is something that we can take control of. Like a lot of other things, we have to want to make ourselves better. We have to want to use the information to make ourselves better. And this, we have to, damn it, protect ourselves. Protect you. And we say it's too hot for condoms in Florida. That's because we stupid down here. We crazy down here. No, a joke is it's too hot for condoms in Florida.
But you know what though? From up here. I heard that because I told you about when I was in basic training in Texas and how the pregnancy rate and the HIV rate was rampant. Like it was crazy. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about really bad, because what's worse, like on college, right? At least you could say you got a bunch of young kids that don't know nothing, but they there with instructors and whatnot. And for the most part, people, they treat them like adults, but there's some supervision somewhere.
Yeah.
In basic training, you basically taking the same age children, giving them a paycheck, no supervision, and telling them they grown, do what they want. Oh, it was all over the place.
Rates gonna go up. Rates gonna go. Look, everywhere. we have a spike in syphilis around every May here in Tallahassee. So have a syphilis spike around every May, and we get a call from the health department. They want to go out into the community, do some syphilis testing. And I'm like, hey, well, I don't know about what y'all been doing, but we've been doing total STD preventative education all year. Like I'm constantly on FAMU campus. We're getting back on. Just had a meeting with the people at FSU today. We're gonna get back on FSU campus. We're in the hot spots. My area code that I live in, 32304 area code, is the poorest. Zip code. It's the poorest zip code in the state of Florida. Both schools sit in that zip code. Our homeless shelter sit in that zip code. A whole large college population sitting in that zip code, on top of the poor population that was already in that zip code. A lot of these things are compounding. What I'm seeing locally is being mirrored nationally.
Mhm. And that has a lot to do with it too, because when you're impoverished, you have a lot more free time on your hands. You know what I'm saying? A lot more laying around, a lot more opportunity. And it's unfortunate because none of this stuff is by accident, right? None of this stuff, the sexual promiscuity we talk about, none of this stuff is by accident. There was a woman by the name of Sue Ellen Browder who actually wrote a book that revealed that there was a conspiracy in the 70s to combine women's suffrage with the porn industry as well as the Cosmopolitan magazine to create these sexualized fantasies for women, to promote them instead of getting married in their teens, or I mean late teens and early 20s. My mom got married at the age of 20. All right. But and my father was like 21, 22. So that to remove women from that particular sector, because they realized that women were on their own, they would spend more money. They would buy more products. If you can convince women to take vacations and have sexcapades, this, that, and the other, and to go forward with their careers and education, and then decide to have families in their 30s, we can get more money out of them. That was the whole notion and concept. They created a whole culture behind it. The television series Sex and the City was based on that. All those different things, the different stories that where they were taking these stories, and instead of saying it was happening in places like Manhattan, DC, Philly, LA, they were moving it to small towns across the country where, you know, all these other people could do it. They created this stuff. We understand it. We understand it was programming. But like Joe was saying earlier, if we don't do shit about this, we're going to continue to go then spiral downwards into the bottom of the drain. We're not going to be able, and listen, nobody gives a damn about who you blame when you don't have enough power to hold them accountable. And if we're not interested in changing our own culture, nobody else will do it for us, because everybody else benefits off of this. Everybody benefits off of black people being bottom dwellers and black people being bottom class citizens. Everybody benefits off of black people being in poverty. Why all these different places open up businesses in black neighborhoods and communities? Why do all the low hanging fruit, like the things that make black culture such substandard, while other cultures, you know, around the world get to bask in the prominent things of their communities and things of that nature? We want to hold down the most negative and derogatory things and make that the prominent aspect of our community. Oh, I don't snitch. Oh, I'm petty. Oh, you know, I'm shiesty. Oh, I'm a sleuth. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I got this. Oh. When we want to promote all these different things and get mad when we get called out about it. Somebody else is trying to back. No, shame. Patrick said it. Shame needs to be reintroduced in our community. And not shame when somebody is telling you to be accountable, but because you're not accountable.
Hey, I've been to the hospital several occasions, different patients that we've had that we've built, you know, some bonds with. And the patient is in the hospital, wasting syndrome, on that literal deathbed. Black men on that deathbed in the hospital, wasting syndrome. You're hoping they get better. We go see them in the hospital. It don't look pretty. It don't look pretty at all. You see them one day, then the next day they've passed away. I've so many people have passed away. So many especially black men. I remember one cool, I'm not gonna say his name, real cool guy. When I first started working, he was one of the dudes, like, he really helped me out a lot, taught me a lot just about just people. And he gave up. It got hard on him. He developed cancer as well, and he gave up. And he passed away. There was another black man passing away from this. We have to look at what we're doing different. We got to be real with ourselves. Once again, I don't care what the person's sexuality, sexual orientation is. I don't care about none of that. because I'm seeing Black people highly affected by this on a regular basis. You may not care, but we care. And if we real serious about making sure our community get better, we got to make sure our community get better across all 9 areas of human activity. That's why I started the video off with the clip of Neely Fuller talking about how white supremacy causes chaos in the area of sex. We can see the kind of chaos that it has caused. But these are things, behaviors that we can fix for ourselves. We just got to want to do it. If you don't know the information about safe sex, go learn it. Hey, I teach stuff all the time. Email me ontheshoulders1@gmail.com. I teach safe sex, HIV prevention to Black people on a regular basis. This is what I do for a living. My 2 passions right now: teaching Black history, teaching HIV/AIDS prevention to Black people. These are my 2 passions. If you want to learn, holla at me. If I can't come physically, I can come virtually. We can get this information out. We can do better. And when I teach and I go in. So hey, keep messing around, and we're gonna mess around and sex ourselves up out of here.
But are you protected when you go in?
Yes. Rap that. Hey man, I remixed Juvenile Son. Girl, you look good, but I'm gonna wrap that thing up. All right, you's a big fine woman. I'm gonna wrap that thing up. You can call me Big Daddy, but I'm gonna wrap that thing up.
Don't. We don't like being called daddy, so don't do that. That's weird.
I'm saying she can, but I'm still wrap that thing up.
It's funny, man, because that's another aspect we didn't even touch on tonight.
Oh, there are several aspects we didn't touch on.
We can, we got time. We got more shows. We get back to it, but we did want to make sure we talk about the safe sex aspect of how STDs are running rampant, specifically HIV is running rampant in our community, still highly affecting us and our quality of health. We got to think about all 9. That's why we preach all 9 areas of human activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. If we're not paying attention to all 9 areas, we ain't paying attention at all. Hey, Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. This is how we do it. See y'all later. Wrap it up.